Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd first like to ask unanimous consent to submit a letter titled Proxy Power and Proposal Abuse to the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and Mrs. Farrell, Keel, thank you. Trying not to be redundant, but I wanted to go back to something and say it kind of just in black and white, and that is ISS and Glass Lewis leverage their control of the proxy advisory market to encourage U.S. companies to purchase their consulting services. That's happening. Creating that appearance and doing so, it may help to avoid the negative voting recommendations. But Mr. Mueller, in your experience working with public companies, what risks do you see when proxy advisory firms issue voting recommendations while also selling consulting and advocacy services?
Well, I'll address three real quickly. I mean, first, it encourages the firms to have a lack of transparency so that you have to buy their services to know how they're going to recommend on something. And it also encourages kind of a check-the-box approach by the proxy advisory firms, because they do maintain an ethical wall, but if both sides of that wall have the same checklist, then that wall doesn't matter. There's still a conflict of interest. And then, of course, shareholders and companies are the ones that are suffering from the votes. The customers of ISS, as we've heard, may not have the economic incentive to exercise a lot of scrutiny on those voting recommendations, but they're not the ones that are hurt. It's the shareholders at large and the companies that suffer from the voting recommendations.
So in your estimation, is there any way for this to be kind of shifted or changed in a way that would eliminate the conflict? Or is the only way to really get rid of this the way we're addressing this with legislation, which is to simply sever the ability to do that, to get rid of the conflict?
There should certainly be regulation, because right now the SEC has its arms tied behind its back on this. And yes, they should certainly evaluate. I mean, certainly, for example, audit firms are not allowed to both audit a client and give certain consulting services to those clients. It's just an irreconcilable conflict and is prohibited. And that may be the solution here.
Mr. Copeland, turning to you, based on your research and analysis of the shareholder proposal process, can you discuss how recurring or the duplicative proposals affect the efficiency and the clarity of the proxy materials that people are receiving very, very often and in a way that sometimes is nonchalant? It's simply mailed to them, and they're overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's can be hard to figure out. I mean, if you've got two proposals on similar subject matter, are you going to really tease those apart well? And then what if shareholders vote yes on one and no on another, and it's sort of ambiguous or there's conflicts? The recurring issue, because the resubmission thresholds have traditionally been so low, proponents can get these on the ballot year after year after year after year, and the proxy advisors take the odd position that if it fails year after year after year after year, and then one year it gets a majority, they've got to act on that, or we may vote against your directors, even though it could potentially flip back the next year. So it's kind of a mess. I didn't put much in this testimony about it, but I put a lot more in my 2016 testimony and in comment letters to the SEC in 2020 and 2022 on this issue, and they're all referenced in my written testimony.
Yeah, so do you currently believe the thresholds for resubmitting the failed proposals, which is kind of a whole other area, you didn't get the outcome you wanted, so you simply bring it back again, maybe with different verbiage, right?
Could be different verbiage, could be the same verbiage. If it hits above those relatively modest thresholds, they can keep doing it year after year. So if you get a proxy advisory firm that likes it, it's going to stay on the ballot in perpetuity, effectively, even if people continue, even if the vast majority of shareholders vote against it year after year.
Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.